One side touts it as the deal of the century. The other says it violates international law and will bring neither peace nor security to the region. I'm Imran Garta, and today's Newsmaker is the aftermath of Washington's plan for Israel and Palestine. 2 weeks after Donald Trump stood in the East Room of the White House and unveiled his vision for bringing peace to the Middle East, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas stood in front of the UN Security Council in New York and condemned it. Brandishing a conceptual map of the redrawn territories, Abbas said the plan lacks international legitimacy, limits Palestinian sovereignty, and leaves more than 3 million people with a state resembling Swiss cheese. In a moment, Roey Gilad, the chargé d'affaires of the Israeli embassy in Ankara, will join us in our studio to talk about the fallout from Trump's announcement. But first, Adam Pletz has more on where the deal currently stands and what it will take to move it forward.
US President Donald Trump has called it the deal of the century. Formulated without Palestinian input, Trump's Middle East plan has gone down well with Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu.
And on this day, you too have charted a brilliant future for Israelis, Palestinians, and the region by presenting a realistic path to a durable peace.
The proposal initially received tentative support from several Arab countries, with ambassadors from the UAE, Oman, and Bahrain attending the announcement in Washington in January. But the Arab League has since unanimously rejected the plan, which envisions a Palestinian capital outside Jerusalem.
Under this vision, Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided, very important, undivided capital.
Israel would also retain its illegal settlements in the West Bank and control the border with Jordan. The Arab League says any deal must be based on Palestine's 1967 borders, with Jerusalem as the capital. In Palestine, Trump's plan has led to widespread demonstrations. One think tank says 94% of Palestinians oppose Trump's proposal, and almost 2/3 now back armed resistance, raising concerns that the so-called peace plan could lead to another intifada. At the UN Security Council, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas abandoned a vote against the initiative as US pressure had rendered a majority unlikely.
وهو الأمر الذي لن يجلب الأمن ولا السلام للمنطقة ولهذا فإننا لن نقبل بها وسنواجه تطبيقها على أرض الواقع. هذه خلاصة المشروع الذي قدم لنا وهذه الدولة التي سيعطونها لنا هي الجبنة السويسرية Swiss cheese.
But Israel says Abbas is part of the problem, and peace can only be reached if he steps down.
He comes here to the UN, he pretends to be committed to peace, but he remains committed to incitement back home. Before he left, Abbas encouraged Palestinians to riot and engage in violence against Israelis.
Is it surprising that Palestinians, en masse, have rejected a deal which sides with Israel on nearly all of the disputed issues? And if Israel really wants an equitable peace, shouldn't it, quite literally, give more ground? Adam Pletz, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now in our Istanbul studio is Roey Gilad. He's the chargé d'affaires at the Israeli embassy in Ankara. Good to talk to you in person, sir. We had one conversation.
Good to be here, Imran.
Do you like Swiss cheese?
I can see where you're leading.
Mahmoud Abbas says that's what he's being offered, and he doesn't like it very much.
You know, by the way, where he took it, the late Yitzhak Rabin said exactly the same thing about the Oslo agreement. So Mahmoud Abbas is not the first one to use this verb. Look, no peace deal is going to satisfy both sides. I think this was Henry Kissinger that said once that a good deal is one that makes both sides as frustrated. I'll take you by surprise. There are many people in Israel who do not like this deal. They think that the independent Palestinian state will risk Israel. There is a swap of land. Many people did not know it, but Palestinians are about to get land in the Negev, in south of Israel, that was never a Palestinian land. So there are inhabitants of the Negev.
That's the part. They lose the land that was Palestinian land, and they get land that was in the middle of the desert, that was never Palestinian land. You see the difference?
I do, but that's exactly why you have frustration on both sides. People here in Turkey think that in Israel everybody is fascinated by the plan. No. The two big parties did accept the plan, the Likud and Blue and White. However, the right wing in Israel is strongly against it. They say any independent Palestinian state, even if demilitarized, is going to endanger the future of the Jewish state. And they lean on what happened in Gaza, where we pulled back in 2005 and see what happened.
But you say the right wing. I mean, Netanyahu has swallowed up most of the right. You're talking about the very extreme right that refuses to even see the Palestinians as human beings in many ways.
No, that's not true. That's not fair. I don't think there are animals who do not see the Palestinians as human beings, but they say that any
Palestinian believes that they have zero claim
any
whatsoever.
Palestinian sovereignty is going to endanger the security of the state of Israel.
And that's why they've not been offered sovereignty at all, really, because you wouldn't accept an Israeli state without an army, without control of borders. What kind of Mickey Mouse state is that? That's not a peace plan. That's an offer to capitulate or nothing.
Is that the problem, that the Palestinian state should have an army? Do you really think that's the major issue?
Army, control of borders, control of ports,
there is
control of trade,
a wide consensus in Israel that a Palestinian independent sovereign state should be demilitarized. Right wing, left wing, they all...
That doesn't make it right, does it?
I think it makes it very right. And I think had you lived in Israel in 2005 and 2006, after we pulled back from Gaza, unilaterally, I agree with you, that was different. Right. And yet, after 1 year, after the violent takeover of Gaza by the Hamas, if you are looking for one event that made Israelis very skeptical about the ability to have a Palestinian independent state next to the Jewish state, this is what happened in Gaza in 2006.
As traumatic as that might be, certainly, if left and right, if there's a consensus that Palestinians should be deported, is that what you do? Because you're making the argument that there's widespread desire amongst the Israelis to have a demilitarized Palestinian state at best.
I say that Israelis, most of them, short of the right wing or the radical right, short of them, there is a strong support in Israel for an independent Palestinian state, which will be demilitarized. And at the same time, we never say the two-state solution. We say the two-nation-state solution. It has to be clear that Israel will remain a Jewish state, Palestinians will remain a Palestinian state, which will be demilitarized.
94% of Palestinians polled in this poll that came out on Tuesday, as you heard in Adam's report, reject the plan, and 2/3 support armed uprising. This is not Mahmoud Abbas. Even if Abbas accepted the plan, 94% of Palestinians say this is nonsense. We live under occupation. We want our rights, and we want a state.
So if those 94%...
Are you partial at all to that?
So I think that's very sad. I listened to the report, and I think that there are very positive elements in the plan which people are ignoring. The fact that you are talking here about, for the first time, an independent Palestinian state. Indeed, not on all the area.
Without control of borders, without an army, where Israel still ultimately controls some of the fundamentals.
This plan, Imran, is a base for negotiation. Okay. It's not take it or leave it. It's not my way or the highway. The plan is a base for negotiations, direct negotiations between the two sides. The United States should not be in the room. Look, the problem here, since 1947, the UN has adopted 700 resolutions concerning the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 700. I don't think there is any area that got so much attention from the international community. However, there was one resolution that had it been adopted in 1947 by the Palestinians, there was no need for the rest of the 699 resolutions. This is the partition plan. So I understand the bitterness that comes now from the Palestinian side, but the Palestinians have to realize the realities on the ground. It's not, they cannot get anymore what was offered in 47, and they refuse to get it in 47.
But why is it then that not only do you have the Palestinians who are out on the streets of Gaza, the West Bank, and elsewhere, you have the AU criticizing the plan, the European Union criticizing the plan, you have the UN Human Rights Council coming out, naming and shaming companies that do business in illegal Israeli settlements. Is this an international conspiracy against you?
No, I think the world is not open to take new ideas. I think many people, many states ignore the realities in the ground, and you cannot copycat the geopolitical maps that we had in 47, even in 67, and say, that's our solution, that's the Palestinian solution.
But nobody's saying,
you need to go back to the 67
But nobody's
borders.
saying that. They're saying they want an end to the occupation.
No, but what
They're saying this plan is rotten because it's not fair. Ehud Olmert is saying this plan is not fair, your former prime minister.
There are 4 partition plans since 1937. The Peel Commission, which was the British Commission, the UN Commission in 47, Ehud Barak, as you remember, in 2000, and Ehud Olmert in 2008. 4 plans. Can you suggest one Palestinian plan other than just going, let's go back to...
The Arab Peace Initiative, the Saudi Peace Initiative?
So
why not use that as a basis? End the occupation, accepting Israel as a nation state, giving the Palestinians a state in the West Bank and Gaza with Jerusalem.
I thank you for this question. Our main challenge with the Saudi peace plan was it was very vague concerning the return of the refugees. That's another thing that Israel will not be willing to take, the return of the refugees.
Right.
There are some, when I say, Imran, facts on the ground, I say that we are now, Israel is 72 years old.
But these are facts on the ground that you have created
But
by
those are facts
building
on the ground.
settlements in the West Bank that you got through conquest.
You are correct by 100%. Nevertheless, the question is, do we want to make now the historical, to go through the historical narrative, or do we want to solve a challenge that Jews and Palestinians are facing in the state of Israel and find a reasonable solution? That's my point.
Is Ehud Olmert wrong for criticizing the plan?
Look, I don't know his political agenda. However, in 2008, when he went to Mr. Abu Mazen and suggested the most generous peace plan that was even more generous than the Barak peace plan in 2000, it was never answered by Mr. Abu Mazen.
Roey Gilad, we'll have you back on again soon and we'll continue this conversation.
I will be looking forward.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, sir.
After proposing a series of reforms last year that would have given Albania's government the power to fine, censor, and shut down domestic and foreign online media outlets without justification or a court order even, the country's president is now proposing similar measures in the fight against terrorism, the mafia, and organized crime. Now, let me tell you about these reforms. They would give the country's executive special powers to spy on, search, arrest, and restrict the movements of ordinary citizens, again, without court orders. Critics say it's the government's way of creating a private police and intelligence service, one that exists outside the rule of law and further erodes the separation of powers between the ruling party and the judiciary, and that the anti-KCK laws are at odds with the European Convention on Human Rights, which Albania is obliged to follow. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined from Tirana by Rovena Voda. She's Albania's Deputy Minister of the Interior. Also in Tirana is Erida Skendaj. She's the Executive Director at the Albanian Helsinki Committee. And Vincent W.J. van Gerven Oei, the Director of Open Access Publishing Platform Punctum Books, joins us from Los Angeles. Good to have you all on the program. Rovena, why do you need these changes?
Well, thank you. Well, the normative act, which is known even as, the package anti-KCK, of course, has to do with the prevention of what you said, you know, in the measures, you know, strengthening the fight against organized crime and terrorism. In fact, the aim of this normative act is an emergency intervention with temporary, you know, time frame, of course, in the need that we have, you know, to intervene, you know, and of course to be a little bit harsher against, you know, the criminals which are part, of course, of organized crime. The emergency is that why people who have been convicted of various criminal offenses in the span of 30 years, whose property now is not affected by, you know, court verdicts or prosecution. So it is much more, you know, a law on fighting criminal assets.
Okay.
So, you know, the famous say, follow the money.
Okay.
So this is, you know, the focus of this law.
Erida, it's to give authorities more tools to fight criminals, no more, no less. Why don't you believe the government?
It's not a matter of believing or not the government, but it's a matter of the obligation of the government to respect the Constitution and the European Convention on Human Rights. But first of all, it's a matter of public consultation that for this legal initiative, a very important legal initiative, there has not been a public consultation, no transparency from the government with NGOs that have in their mission the respect of human rights. And this is a very concerning issue because since the beginning of December last year, we called and we asked to the government to be part of the process of consultation of this legal initiative. And this legal initiative, the most concerning part is the fact that it comes in the momentum when the judiciary reform is being implemented in Albania. And this is a very important momentum. Why? Because the implementation of the justice system reform that has started since the 2016 aimed specifically to increase the independence of judiciary.
Okay.
And now that we are in the middle of the process, in the process where the special prosecution and special court against organized crime have been established, now we give this extra power to the police unit under the umbrella of the executive.
Okay, so on the issue of consultation, I'm going to get a response from Rovena in a minute, but I want to ask Vincent. Vincent, from your vantage point, do you see this as weakening the independence of the justice system?
Absolutely. I agree with Rovena that indeed this law comes at the moment that we are in the middle of the justice reform. In fact, we are in the middle of establishing an independent investigative bureau that is modeled on the FBI. And this law is only the last in a series of attempts of the current government to abrogate the powers of such a independent police investigative unit and put it under the care of the Ministry of Interior directly. And so this is absolutely a weakening of the judiciary independence.
Okay, so Rovena Voda, when we look at the longer timeline here, people aren't just taking this move as something on its own. They look at the previous attempts as well with the so-called anti-defamation package to regulate online media and so on, right, and journalists. And they also talk of a lack of consultation and transparency when it came to that as well. So they feel as if the state is just doing whatever it wants to and it's not listening to the people. Respond to that.
Now, No, I think this is not true, and really, of course, I don't feel quite well when I heard such things, because the normative act seeks to resolve administratively unjustified property issues, and this is the great and the only truth. And regarding to consultation, I want to let you know that, of course, this law was drafted under, consultation in a round table with all, very important stakeholders and, of course, our partners, which, of course, are experts from Euralius and PAMECA mission, which are missions of European Commission, which supports, Ministry of Justice and Ministry of Interior. So this is an act, this is a legal act, which has been consulted with them, and so where we are. And let me make you know also that the principles of respecting human rights are put on this law, and there is a specific article on this. And we are not giving powers to police. We just want to give a little space more to police to investigate actively, and every decision of the police will go under the filters of SPAC, which is the Special Prosecution Against Organized Crime and Corruption, and of course, it will be a court decision at the end.
Okay, Vincent?
Sorry?
No, this is only after the fact. So the police can confiscate and constrain people's movements before the court has given such agreement. And so this is obviously against human rights. You cannot suddenly confiscate the property of people and their family members and the companies that they may be involved in before a court order. Now, I actually have a question for the Deputy Minister, because as you indicate, and as the Prime Minister has indicated many times, this is called the anti-KCK package. Now, for those who don't speak Albanian, it means it's the package against those who grab what they can. And the Prime Minister has several times indicated that with this, he means the members of the judiciary. So this is supposedly a package that would grab the property and the assets of those who grab what they can. Now, apart from the fact that this is a full frontal attack meant as an attack on the judiciary itself, I do not see in this law anything that actually deals with those so-called grab what you can.
So let's get Rovena to respond. Okay, Vincent. Rovena?
Okay, so the normative act is clearly, Vincent, because he has a specific article number 5, which clarifies which are the subjects of this law, of the normative act.
And this excludes corruption and money laundering.
It is written black on the white, who are those subject of this law. And regarding to judges and prosecutors, yes, it is true. Yes, it is true. Let me know that, of course, they have been part of the KCK because they have given even some decisions which really goes in contrary with all the efforts of the police and prosecution against organized crime. But of course there is the vetting process. Of course we fully agree, which is justice reform. So nothing is written here, but the Parliament yesterday in the plenary session, they passed some changes in the law for judges and prosecutors. And of course there will be the specific, institution who will deal with administrative procedures, disciplinary procedures against judges and prosecutors, who of course will give such decisions, just like the High Inspectorate of Justice and of course the Council, of the Judges and the Council of the Prosecutors.
I want to ask
Erida, we are respecting the specific laws for judges and prosecutors.
Okay, Erida, is that possible? To be able to do the judicial reform and this thinning out process that's taking place right now, and at the same time trying to be tough on crime while respecting human rights and adhering to all its obligations as a state? Is it possible to do that at the same time?
Yes. Of course it is possible because
the
state works.
Rovena, this is for Erida. Erida, go ahead.
The state works, the state continues. So the police, of course, continues with all its efforts, to investigate and fight against every person,
I know you believe you can do it at the same time, but I'm asking Erida if she trusts that the state can do these two things at the same time.
Okay, sorry that I have misunderstood your question, and now that Rovena has intervened in the answer, now I am more clear. So, I think that it's not possible to make at the same time the implementation of the justice system reform legal framework and this package that is being proposed by the Council of Ministers and includes not only this law that this normative act that we are discussing today, but also today we have been introduced with another law that is part of this legal initiative, very confusing legal initiatives, that gives power to the police without the order of the prosecution to put specific people and persons under surveillance. So the whole legal initiative is very confusing. It violates the separation of power, the check and balance principle set in the Constitution of Albania.
Okay. Listen.
It violates the human rights set in the Constitution and in the European Convention. And I would like to mention another thing, because
very briefly, we've got 20 seconds left.
Rovena has mentioned the fact that they have consultation with, they have done consultation with the international experts. I'm talking for the consultation with domestic actors, with very prestigious NGOs that fights day by day for a better protection of human rights. Why government has not made any consultation with us? We have also won cases before the Strasbourg court. Please, can Ms. Voda respond to this answer? Because we have more than 2 months without an answer for being excluded from the consultation process, and the EU itself has requested our opponent approach for this legal initiative.
Erida, I'm out of time.
So if EU has his last word, why EU is very interested in our opponent approach for this legal initiative?
We're going to keep a close eye on this. We're going to look at the EU perspective. We're going to follow through and follow up on this story. We'll have you all back on the program sometime soon. But I'm completely out of time, so I apologize. Rovena, Erida, and Vincent, a pleasure having you on the program, and it's good to introduce our viewers to the issues here. We'll have a follow-up. But thanks for joining us here on the Newsmakers, and thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.